Hey guys, and thanks for stopping by. I'm Langston, and along with my friend Jeremy Payne, we're bringing you That Was History, a show all about historical events and fun facts. Have you ever wondered where the phrase God bless you comes from? You know, the one that you say after someone sneezes? Well, why don't you sit back, relax, and enjoy this show, and we'll tell you all about it.
Have you ever wondered where the phrase God bless you comes from? It's a very commonly used phrase that you say to someone after they've sneezed. It's a blessing, in fact, to tell someone this phrase after they've sneezed. It's on February 16th of 600 AD that Pope Gregory the Great decreed that this was the correct saying to say to someone in response to a sneeze. This was due to the fact that right after he had become Pope, the start of the bubonic plague had arisen. And in saying to someone God bless you was actually a blessing in hopes that you would not develop the bubonic plague. So the next time that someone does sneeze, even though the bubonic plague isn't around anymore, tell them God bless you in hopes that they're not getting sick or coming down with something.
Personally, if I could have a giant collection of something, I think that I would want it to be antique vehicles. I've always loved the styles and types of vehicles that have been made throughout the years. And for me, there is no stopping point on how old these vehicles have to be. I think it would be really awesome to own one of those old hand-crank vehicles from long ago. And that's actually where our next story takes off. The very first electric self-start was actually installed in a Cadillac by General Motors on February 17th of 1911. Up until this point, all vehicles prior to this time had to be hand-cranked, as I mentioned earlier. Hand-cranking a vehicle was very hard work, and actually there were multiple minor injuries that occurred from backfiring from the startup process. It's kind of interesting how all we have to do nowadays is turn a key or press a button to get our car to start, but a long time ago you had to use a lot of force to crank up your vehicle.
So if you've had even the smallest degree of science, whether it be elementary or high school science, I'm sure that you're familiar with all of the 9 planets. There's Mercury, Venus, Earth,
Jeremy forgot Mars,
Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and the smallest of them, Pluto. Well, it was true until a few years ago when they downgraded Pluto from a major planet to a dwarf planet. Back on February 18th of 1930, Clyde Tombaugh, an astronomist, discovered a new planet while in an observatory in Flagstaff, Arizona. It was named such for the Greek god of the underworld, thus deriving the name we all know as Pluto.
For a lot of people, the Third Anglo-Dutch War probably doesn't mean much. It has one of those names of those countless wars that aren't even talked about in most textbooks. Without going into too much detail, this war was actually a small part of the much larger Franco-Dutch War and lasted from 1672 all the way to 1674. In this war, the English and the French would actually join forces, which is something that's pretty much unheard of, and would fight against the Dutch Republic. During the war, England would make several attempts to take land, but this ultimately was just a waste of resources. Our event for today is actually the day that this war would come to an end. On February 19th of 1674, the Peace of Westminster was signed and this war would officially be over. And interesting side note, there was actually a provision in the treaty that handed over the colony of New Amsterdam into the hands of the English. This colony was later renamed New York. Sound familiar?
So you may or may not be familiar with the term dueling or what takes place during a duel. So if you were born anywhere in the mid-1900s or so, I'm sure that you've heard of the cartoon Bugs Bunny and Yosemite Sam. Well, they would duel and stand back to back to each other, take a certain number of paces, and then they would fire each other. Now in the cartoon they may or may not hit someone, or they may have something funny happening, but in a duel you would actually turn around, shoot and fire, and you would kill your opponent. Well, on February 20th of 1839, Congress enacted anti-dueling laws so that you couldn't just go up to someone and challenge them to a duel for any type of dispute.
The rise of nuclear warfare has caused many countries to panic over the years. How are we going to defend ourselves against an attack is actually one of the biggest questions that governments are seeking to answer. While no one is completely certain what governments are capable of, the United States actually decided to flex their muscles a little bit on February 21st of 2008. On this day, they actually launched an SM-3 missile from a warship just a little bit west of Hawaii. This missile's purpose was actually to disable a spy satellite that was 153 nautical miles above Earth. The launch was actually very successful, and it proved to many skeptics that the United States defense system was actually working quite well.
As a disclaimer, I would never ever try any of this, but say you were out for an assassination of the president or someone high in office. Wouldn't the best way be from like miles away with a long-range weapon? I mean, that seems most obvious than using a method that might lead to suicide. Well, contrary to this belief, an attempt on Richard Nixon's life happened on February 22nd of 1974 when there was an attempt to hijack a plane at the Baltimore-Washington airport. Samuel Bick had the intentions of using this plane to fly directly into the White House, killing Richard Nixon. Now, just using a bit of common sense, what are the likelihoods that he's going to fly the plane into the White House and actually kill the president? I mean, it doesn't make sense. It's suicide to say the least.
Alright guys, well that's going to do it for this episode, but hey, now you know why we say God bless you, and you know why we don't duel anymore, and you know a lot of other stuff that we taught you today. Be sure to come back next Friday when we post our new episode, and we'll see you then.
And please follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and please hit that subscribe button, because if it wasn't for you, we couldn't do this show here.